streaming now, but I have the mics off. Okay, when you're ready to begin, you let me know, and I'll put the mics back on. Put the mics on, dude.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to begin the service today with a song in honoring our ancestors. Earth, Mother Earth, I hear you calling me. Earth, Mother Earth, I hear you calling me. In the air I breathe, in the fire of the sun, in the water I drink, and the land I walk upon. Earth, Mother Earth, I hear you calling me. Earth, Mother Earth, I hear you calling me. In the air I breathe, in the fire of the sun, in the water I drink, and the land I walk upon. Earth, Mother Earth, I hear you calling me. Earth, Mother Earth, I hear you calling me. In the air I breathe, in the fire of the sun, in the water I drink, and the land I walk upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Lila, and welcome to Interfaith Community Church, and I almost said sanctuary. This is a sanctuary also, and I'd like to honor our First Peoples and recognize that the land that we're on currently at ICS is originally Duwamish land, the land that we're broadcasting on around the United States, around North and South America. We're all native, first inhabited by native peoples. And locally, there is a group known as the Duwamish. And the Duwamish were the people of Chief Seattle, among others. But somehow, even though they've been recognized throughout our area, the US government still isn't recognizing them as an official entity. There are two ways that if you'd like to learn more about the Duwamish, they have a website, reunite.org, and they're a really lovely longhouse, which is on Marginal Way, west of Marginal Way, if I'm correct. It's on the, right near Harbor Island. And I'd like to do a short a prayer of sorts, where I'd like, we're not going to all do this together, but just to demonstrate that if we put our hands on our hearts and bring all that it is human in us, all our joys, all our sorrows, everything that it means to be human, and then we're going to raise up our hands to the heavens, and as we raise up our hand, the divine may put something in our hands as a gift to us. And as we do that, we're going to say, oh. So all together, folks at home can do this also if they'd like. Take a deep breath. Oh. And back again. Blessed be. Thank you.
And in honor of the Divine Feminine, I'd like to share an invocation. Great Mother Goddess, Mother of all, we ask you to be with us today as we honor your feast day. Remember that we are your children, and we seek your guidance and love and protection. And we will remember that you're always with us as we walk our path and do your work, so mote it be.
One final proud thing I get to do is welcome my wonderful friend, Rev Judith Laxer. I'd like to say that I'm not sure exactly what time of the, I don't want to date either of us, but I was proud to be a part of Rev Judith's initial gatherings of the goddess in her office on Green Lake, and I'm really glad that I was able to be a part of that, and I have to acknowledge my friend Augusto Romano for bringing me to that space. So I'd like to read Judith's bio to you. Reverend Judith Laxer is a modern-day mystic who believes that beauty, humor, and the wonders of nature make life worth living. The founding priestess of Gaia's Temple and Moonwise Mystery School is now both online. Judith is a keynote speaker, teacher of the magical arts and mysteries, and author of Along the Wheel of Time, Sacred Stories for Nature Lovers, which is published by Ravenswood. Judith dedicates her work to the rise and culture integration of the divine feminine in all her magnificence and wisdom. And she has two websites, gaiastemple.org and judithlaxer.com. Welcome, Judith Laxer.
Good morning. Thanks again so much for inviting me. It's an honor to be back here at Interfaith. And I am honored to be speaking today, particularly because it is World Goddess Day. And what better day than that? A day to come together, as it says in the introduction here, to celebrate and pay tribute to the goddess. And we acknowledge her ancient presence in cultures all over the world, all over the globe. If you go back far enough, anywhere on this planet, she is there. Her worship predates the Judeo-Christian Islamic religions that came after. Her worship began in pre-patriarchal times. And because we don't have much written records in the way of that, we don't know exactly for how long she was worshipped, but some say as far back as 30,000 years BCE, based on the Upper Paleolithic figurines, cave paintings, and other archaeological finds in Europe and the Middle East and Africa. And some say back over 100,000 years. We don't know for sure. But all that we do know is that she was indeed worshipped for thousands of years on planet Earth. So much so that we call her Mother Earth and Mother Nature. And we understood that she who brings life to bear was miraculous. And we revered her for her power. We understood her natural laws were irrefutable, and we recognize the mother of those laws as divine. So this is a day when we acknowledge the goddess, and also that the goddess is not merely the feminine face of God, but divinity in her own right. There's an old joke created by modern day goddess worshippers that goes, "Your God," or "my goddess." I just ruined the joke. I'm gonna start again. There's an old joke, and it goes like this: "My goddess is your God's mother." Oh my goodness, and we all know that humor is only funny when it's true. So in this joke, we recognize the inherent power of the mother. She is the one, and the one from whom all else arises. And we all know that when mama's happy, everybody's happy. And when mama is not happy, nobody is happy. She is not the subservient to God, the Almighty. She's not just a feminine aspect of him. She's not whatever we might think she is in relationship to the male god, his wife, his waitress, his housekeeper, the mother of his children. She is her own, sovereign, powerful, natural, and wild. All things that patriarchy, even within some of its loving religions, do not support and certainly don't consider or recognize as divine. Now, surely this is a complete paradigm shift from how the divine has been worshipped after the establishment of patriarchy. And even though we might believe in unity and oneness, and we do, and even though we might believe that the divine is no one particular gender, for thousands of years on this planet, God has been male, called by male pronouns and depicted as male. And thereby, and therefore, it's been a man's world. Women, on the other hand, have not been depicted or heard the feminine referred to as divine for centuries and centuries. And this does a number on us, you know? The role models we have been given have been ones who are the bringers of original sin, the ones deemed unfit to maintain control over their own bodies, the ones for whom their nature is considered dirty, inferior, and immoral. It has not been a woman's world. And Mama is not happy, as we can see everywhere we look on Mother Earth, from climate change to the desperate attempt for absolute control and the rise of fascism again, from the way we view the earth as a resource to be used, much the same way that women are used, as those who are largely considered here merely to please others. So now this is why World Goddess Day is so important, so that we can take a good long look at this imbalance, so that we can contemplate the continual disparity between the sexes in every arena, still, not only as humans perpetuating our own demise, but in the realm of the divine. We need to change this story. This story must be changed. Perhaps especially in the realm of the divine, because having a prevalence of goddess will heal our very fractured world. I know for myself, when I found goddess back in my 20s, which was 40-something years ago, thanks for not outing me on my age, but I'm come right out with it, I'm 63 now. Back in my 20s when I found the goddess, everything changed for me. Not only did I very clearly hear my calling to a completely different career than I was on a trajectory for it, but everything in my personal life changed as well. My feminist sensibilities, did come of age in the 1970s after all, found their roots in goddess worship. She became grounded in every part of my life, and I stand before you today because of her. Now, we might never know exactly what it was that happened to cause the plight of the goddess, and therefore women, to go from being respected, honored, and worshipped to being disparaged, raped, and controlled. And sometimes I wonder if not knowing how that happened is what keeps it going. And then sometimes I think, we don't really have to know exactly what it was that started this thing. We just need to acknowledge the truth of it, that at one point in our history, she was denounced, and her power was taken from her, and the trajectory of the world ever since that time has brought us here. And those of us who are awake and aware know that we are here on the brink of the 6th greatest extinction on planet Earth. And I wonder, perhaps if we had kept worshiping the goddess, we would have a world culture that honored the earth, that tended to the earth, that took care of the earth, and trusted women to know when and how many children to have, listened to the wisdom of the feminine, which honors inclusion and equity and nurturance and sustainability and intuition and sensuality. So, as already established, the laws of nature are irrefutable. We can fight against them, but they remain. And in nature, we find the elements of earth and air and fire and water, as Lila led us in that beautiful song. We've got another song to do something very similar. So to bring the goddess even more into our embodied experience, I'm going to invite Pamela Gerke up to lead us in the song called Trilogy.
All right, welcome everybody. Okay, so this is an arrangement of 3 songs. That's why we call it trilogy. And your part is the one that goes like this: earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire my spirit. So we're going to do a little rehearsal first, okay? Just goes like this. Earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire my spirit. Earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire my spirit. Earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire. One more time. Earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire my spirit. Okay, so that's your part. And then there's 2 other parts, and you're welcome to join us on either or both of those as well, or just keep the earth my body one going. So Judith and I are going to sing those other 2 parts for you right now, just so you can hear what they sound like. By my life be I spirit, and by my heart be I woman, and by my eyes be I open, and by my hands be I whole. I found God in myself. I found God in myself, and I loved her fiercely, oh, and I loved her fiercely. I found God in myself. All right, so you're going to keep the earth, my body going. Judith and I are going to add the by my life. Join us if you like. And then I'm going to add the top part. Just keep going and you'll know what to do. All right? Here we go. About right there. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air, my breath, and fire, my spirit. Earth, my body, water, my blood, air my breath, and fire my spirit. Earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire my spirit. Earth my body, water my blood, my spirit, by my life, be I spirit, and by my heart, be I woman, and by my eyes, be I open, and by my hands be I whole. I found God in myself. I found God in myself, and I loved her fiercely. And I loved her fiercely. I found God in myself. By my life be I spirit, and by my heart be I woman, and by my eyes be I open, and by my hands be I whole. Earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire. A little quieter. Earth my body, water my blood, air my breath, and fire my, on a hum. And in silence. You did a good job, choir.
Thank you so much, Pam. So, because it is World Goddess Day, and because we are rapidly approaching the autumnal equinox on the wheel of the year, and as it is also already established, we wish to change the story we tell about the divine feminine. I'm going to relay a beautiful tale that hails from ancient Greece, said to be the birthplace of our democracy, now teetering so precariously. This is a tale that is rich in metaphor, that of the great grain goddess Demeter and her precious daughter Persephone. Now the tale, as I learned it in school as a child, was one in which the innocent maiden goddess Persephone was wandering in the fields picking wildflowers, when suddenly the earth burst open, and Hades, the lord of the underworld, brother of the almighty sky god Zeus, and the powerful Poseidon of the seas, comes rushing to the surface in his chariot, grabs Persephone, and brings her down with him to the underworld to become his queen. And when her mother, the great grain goddess Demeter, discovers that she is missing, Demeter calls a strike, so nothing will grow on the earth. And over the time, the people begin to starve, and so a bargain must be struck among the gods, and that bargain goes like this. Because Persephone has eaten 6 pomegranate seeds in the underworld, she may return to the surface of the earth to be with her mother for 6 moons, but then she must return for 6 moons to be in the underworld with Hades. And as Wendy Rule sings in her magnificent opus to the goddesses, 6 for the darkness and 6 for the light. Now, this narrative comes to us from the classical era of Greece, sometime in the years between 510 BC and 323 BC. And we might surmise that this was part of the creation stories of that culture, a way to explain both the changing of the seasons, but also the nature of life and death and resurrection. And we know that this tale was written after patriarchy became established, and we can find evidence of that in several places in this tale. From the 3 brothers who rule the upper, middle, and lower worlds, from Hades just bursting onto the scene and grabbing Persephone without so much as a how do you do, to how mothers have had to suffer the powerlessness of having their children taken from them. The story also gives a strong nod to how mothers and daughters were separated from each other as part of how patriarchy took hold, the old divide and conquer. And if this could happen to goddesses like Demeter and Persephone, then what hope would mere mortals have in this new order of the day? So you can see how these stories were created with a power dynamic that subsumes the wisdom of the feminine. And like other creation stories, such as blaming Eve for eating an apple and blaming the Magdalene for being a sexual being, even though all human beings are, these are power-instructing stories, stories that teach a particular ethic, I use that word loosely, that is swayed against the feminine, swayed against the goddess. And so this begs the question, what if this story was told differently? And this is what I came up with. The great grain goddess Demeter had a beautiful daughter named Persephone. The two were very close, and the love and respect between them knew no bounds. Wise Demeter watched as her daughter grew, and she taught her how to be a very good goddess. And like most mothers, she was very attached to her daughter, and therefore had a bit of difficulty letting her go as she began to mature. She knew in her heart that as her daughter came of age, she would need to create her own life, to test the waters of her own experience as a young woman, and Demeter's heart ached with the knowledge that this surely meant Persephone would soon be leaving. Demeter worried about this. She tried not to think about it. She tried to feel okay about it, and in truth, she did all three. One day, Persephone was taking a peaceful nap in a meadow of wildflowers. The sun was shining, the air was warm and fragrant. Wise grandmother Hecate, the old crone, knew that with both Persephone fast asleep and Demeter nowhere to be seen, the time was now for her to do her part in keeping the cycle turning. With the power of her immortal hand, a spell was laid upon the sleeping maiden. Whispering into her ear, she caused visions of the lands below to enter her dreams. She charged Persephone to see what was transpiring in the dark of the underworld, and this is what Demeter's daughter saw. The great king Hades was below, downcast and weeping in loneliness. On a throne of carved black marble, he sat in shadow, bent over as one who was forlorn and lost. Beside him was an empty throne, and upon it lay a jeweled silver crown. Hades then began to sing. Low, low and ominous, the song bespoke such yearning that all of the souls began to mourn with him. Hades sang until his deep and haunting sounds found the ear of fair Persephone, and in her dream, she could see that King Hades could see her sleeping far up above. She felt his sadness and also noticed how handsome he was, and her heart flooded with love and compassion. Her heart had awakened, it had opened to the Lord of the underworld, and now her only wish was to join him and to bring light and beauty to that dark place. She wished to bring him the essence of the sun and of the beautiful flowers she had known in the bright world above. She could see nor think of nothing but the swarthy god who had already stolen her heart, and Hades had seen her. This was no fleeting snip of a story from above, no apparition that would disappear on the next exhale. This was a real goddess of flesh and blood whose eyes held his in fascination, awakening a passion in him that he could no longer keep under restraint. From his palace of darkness, he went to the grotto of black stallions and harnessed the steeds to his waiting chariot. He jumped in, and just before he snapped the reins, he called out to her, Persephone! And the sound of her own name caused her to stir, and she woke to find her grandmother Hecate beside her. Hecate raised her ancient and divine hand across the meadow, and there appeared flame. Poppies shone a deep blood red before they were extinguished in the holy fire. And beyond the red and glittering flame, the earth burst asunder. Great mounds of earth spewed out as black stallions entered the world that had not borne them. The field became burning ember, and beyond the field, the god of the underworld drew up in his chariot and waited. His penetrating gaze locked with Persephone's once more, and a jolt sped through him as he held perfectly still, attempting to steady his fast-pounding heart, hoping against hope that the fates were giving him someone to love, someone he could cherish and satisfy, someone to share his life with down to the very depths of it. Hecate raised Persephone from the ground as fear and courage awoke together in the maiden's heart. But she was steadfast, and she removed the crown of poppies from her head and cast it into the flame. Her gaze was fixed upon the face of her beloved, and uncrowned, she walked across the field of ember and flame to descend with the Lord of the Dark. Her veil, embroidered with lilies, was left behind. Into the waiting chariot she fled, the brilliance of passion filling her heart. Hades drove the black steeds around the earth once, and then down through the rocky chasm into the lands below. And as the holy daughter crossed over, the silver crown appeared upon her head. Once entering the underworld, she did not drink from the river of forgetfulness. Instead, she drank from the shining spring of memory, and the voices of the dead rang out in jubilation. The queen was received, and the celebration began. It was then that the powers of Aphrodite, the goddess of passionate love, entered the underworld. Into the palace, Persephone and Hades came, lit from within with love for one another. On the couch of Aphrodite they lay, entwined, their jeweling arms in the fiery embrace of love and passion. He enamored of her beauty and light, and she of his mystery and darkness. And so, through the power of love, did life become one with death. And when their passion was for the moment spent, they quenched their thirst and refreshed themselves on scarlet seeds of juicy pomegranates. In time, Queen Persephone came to receive the souls of the dead, and this matured her. She reigned as the queen of justice and set herself to bring balance to the ledger of every shadowed soul who called out for her. In this way, she helped the newly dead arrive to understand where they were and why, to reevaluate the life they just lived, to come to peace with the lessons they learned, to determine what would be next, and most importantly, to rest without obligation so their soul can restore. Now, on the surface of the earth, Demeter came looking for her precious daughter. And as she approached the meadow where last she saw the sleeping maiden, she gasped in horror as she spied the smoke rising from the smoldering embers. Persephone was nowhere to be seen. The goddess of the grain found only her daughter's scorched veil, and panic seized her heart. "Persephone! Persephone!" she cried. "Where are you?" Her pace quickened, and she began to roam the earth looking for her daughter. Demeter searched and searched unceasingly. She did not stop to rest or to eat or to drink, and her thoughts were circular. They rolled over and over, the terror of finding her daughter missing, to wondering who might have seen her, to wondering why they didn't tell her to come home, to what might have happened to her, to that she might be in danger, to the heartbreak that she was gone, and back to the terror of finding her daughter missing. She ruminated on these things as she walked everywhere, looking for her little girl, her sweet daughter, the divine maiden who lived in her heart. And as her hope dwindled, the crops withered in the fields. The leaves left the trees. Soon, nothing would grow, and the first autumn was born in Demeter's despair. Yet she kept on searching, barely noticing that her clothes were turning into rags, that her feet were covered in dirt, or that the light that usually emanated from her aura, The light that indicated her divinity had faded. Bitter sadness shaped her mouth. Dark circles underlined her haunted eyes. She walked everywhere, exhausted, yet unwilling to give up. Months went by, with the land as barren as the goddess's heart. It seemed nothing could assuage her sorrow. By now, Persephone had become accustomed to her life in the underworld, and then, as if it was meant to be, she felt and heard the sound of her mother's weeping, and it broke her heart in two, half for her mother and half for her beloved. She ruminated on her dilemma and could find no solution. The thought of leaving her beloved was unbearable, and yet the thought that her absence was the source of such pain for her mother, and consequently the searing hunger of all people of the earth, filled her with guilt and remorse. She withdrew. She withdrew into herself, so that even the light she had brought to the darkness began to wane, and just before that light went out, she sought help outside herself. Hecate, the crone goddess of wisdom, appeared before her. The presence of her loving grandmother was great comfort. "Holy Queen," Hecate said to her, "ease your heart of its burdens and sadness. Come now, listen to my plan. Stay with your beloved Hades from the time the grain is stored to the time it is again planted. Then rise to work with your holy mother as before. The choice is yours. You chose to come here, and yours is the choice to go. Have pity on those above who cry out to Demeter to return the land's fertility. They cannot wait forever, else all will be below and none above." The heart of the holy daughter filled with gratitude for the wisdom of the crone, and she fell into the old and loving arms and hugged her fiercely. And then she ran to tell Hades the new plan. And Hades was so relieved to see the light in Persephone's eyes once more. He trusted the wisdom of the plan, and even though he knew he would miss her terribly once she returned to the surface of the earth, he loved Persephone so deeply, as deep as the underworld itself, more so even, beyond measure. The god loved the goddess utterly, and so he followed the depth of that love and agreed to the plan without hesitation. Wise Hades, good Hades. Her kiss, which neither of them would soon forget, assured him that he had pleased her. But before the kiss could seduce them any further, and with an aching sob in her breast, Persephone laid down her silver crown and crossed over to earth. Demeter was overjoyed to see her daughter again, to know that she was safe, and to observe how she had grown. They clung to one another in a loving hug for some time, and their tears flowed. The earth greened once more. The maiden was received by mother, and the crone crowned them both with evergreen and laurel. Hecate would then both precede and follow Persephone thereafter. Demeter promised eternal life to all those who would come and experience and keep the mysteries of life and death and life again within their initiated souls. Still, in her heart of hearts, Demeter knew she would never have her daughter completely as she once had, as the innocent little maiden whose heart was hers alone. She knew that during the time Persephone returned to her beloved in the underworld, she would not have the will to make the land green again without the blossoming maiden. She knew that she must accept this as surely as the passing of time. She knew that just as Hades had to wait until each autumn to see his beloved again, she must take comfort in the knowing that the spring would always herald Persephone's return. So that's the story I came up, and in this rendition, the result is the same. Persephone descends at the autumnal equinox and ascends at the vernal. Love is the motivation for her initial descent, and love motivates her to seek help and wisdom for resolve. There is no need for rape and abduction There is no punishment for eating pomegranate seeds. Mothers and daughters don't need to be torn apart from one another. This needn't be what keeps the world turning. When we tell the story of darkness and light, life and death, joy and sorrow, it needn't be violent. It needn't be a story of one person overpowering another in order to get their needs met. When we tell the story looking through the lens of the goddess, everyone gets their needs met. Persephone grows up. She becomes a woman. She learns the ways of the life cycle through experience. Hades' love is as deep as the underworld, and he honors her. Demeter doesn't have to lose her mind with worry about her daughter. I think if we're going to eradicate the practice of overpowering others in order to get our own way, we need to tell new stories. We need to recognize the power dynamics being taught through these old stories and write them anew. We can arrive at the same place of acceptance of the life cycle without ruin and injury and trauma and pain. We can arrive at the same place of acceptance of the life cycle with love and consent and honor and respect. Can I get a blessed be? Now this tale is told close to the autumnal equinox, that 24-hour period of time when the days and the nights are equal length on the wheel of the year. This is when Persephone descends to the underworld, and it signals the beginning of the dark half of that wheel. And from then onward, the nights will begin to grow longer than the days, and we are entering the time of the deeper mysteries, when the deeper mysteries hold sway. It's a more reflective time, and soon the earth will rest after the long season of growth and fruition, just as we rest each night after a long day of work and activity. Mother Nature's rules are irrefutable. The autumn equinox, a holy day in pagan spirituality called Mabon, is the celebration of the harvest of the fruits and the vegetables. Now is the time of harvesting all that is ripe and ready after the long summer of growth. It's a time to preserve food for the fallow time to come. That is one of the things that the people learned. Demeter taught them how to grow and dry and preserve food so that during the fallow time they can make it through the winter. So this is a time that we still do that. We are preserving, drying our food, taking stock, looking at the larder. What do we need? What are we going to need? This is wisdom, knowing the life cycle. And of course, as all harvest festivals require, it's a time to lift our hearts in gratitude for the bounty of the earth that feeds us, a time to bless the food with our thanks. So I'm going to invite Pam up here again. I brought these sweet apples for us to bless. We'll take a sip in here. And we have a lovely song called Triwase. We praise the trees, strong may you grow. We praise your roots that downward go. We praise your branches reaching high, bearing leaves that touch the sky. In the spring with blossoms crowned, in fall apples ripe and round. Bless the flower and bless the seed, and bless the fruit of every tree. May winter's cold to you be kind. May your blossom in the spring sunshine. May gentle rain in its season fall. May you be loved by one and all. In the spring with blossoms crowned, in fall apples ripe and round. Bless the flower and bless the seed, and bless the fruit of every tree.
blossoms crowned, in fall apples ripe and round. Bless the flower and bless the seed, and bless the fruit of every tree. In the spring with blossoms crowned, in fall apples ripe and round. Bless the flower and bless the seed, and bless the fruit of every tree.
Thank you. I love that song. So, my friends, may the coming equinox bring you safely across the threshold into the more restful and reflective time of year. May your harvest be bountiful and enough to share. At the holy time of equinox, may we all find balance, so necessary for healing in our weary world. May we tell better stories, stories that feature the goddess as well as the god, stories that uplift the feminine, and may we learn from those stories. Thank you so much, and blessed be.
Thank you so much, Judith and Pamela, and all the community singing in our choir here. I think that's really all that should be said today, but there is one other thing that I'd like to put out there. This lovely mundane building is, we're an independent entity, and as such, we depend on those folks who can give as they can give. There are a couple of different ways you can do that. We're going to pass the plate here in a moment. But if you're at home or if you just happen to look at our website, there is a spot that says donations, and you can make a contribution there. You could also mail us a check to 1763 Northwest 62nd Street in Seattle, Washington, 98107. And our website again is interfaithcommunitysanctuary.org. So we welcome you if you are watching this on YouTube. I've said this before, and it's a thing that I hear from other YouTubers. Please like, subscribe, whatever you need to do on that too. So thank you, and I'm going to ring the bell to close out our live stream.